Alright, picture this. You get a text from an unknown number saying your wife's been cheating on you. What would you do? Would you go straight to her and ask if it's true? Or maybe you decide to go out and get back at her. Well, that's exactly what happened to me one day. I got this message on my phone. Check your wife's glove box. What I found there and how everything went down. I'll tell you the whole story, step by step. Family gatherings had always been something we did. Nothing fancy, just a time for my parents, my brother, and a few cousins to catch up, share news, and laugh about old memories. We'd gather in the backyard at my parents' house, enjoying the comfort of home-cooked meals, cold beers, and the occasional heated discussion about sports or politics. It was our way of staying close, of keeping that feeling of family alive that so many seemed to lose as they got older. I pulled into the driveway just after 6. My brother Jared was already there. The smell of barbecue filled the air. Dad must have been in charge of the grill. As I walked up to the house, I checked my phone, but there were no messages from Ella. That was odd. She had left before me, saying she wanted to stop at the store to pick up a bottle of wine, so she should have been here by now. Inside, the conversation was already lively. Mom hugged me, Dad gave me a solid clap on the back, and Jared handed me a beer before I even had the chance to sit down. I took a sip and looked around the room, hoping to see Ella. She wasn't there. Did you come by yourself? Mom asked, noticing my confusion. She said she'd be here, I replied, trying to sound casual. She stopped at the store for wine. She probably got held up, Dad said while flipping a burger on the grill. Traffic's been bad tonight. I nodded, but something felt off. Ella was never late. If anything, she was the one who would nag me about being on time. I pulled out my phone again, hesitated for a moment, and then sent her a text. Hey, everything okay? No response. The conversation around me continued, but I couldn't focus. I kept looking at the front door, expecting her to walk in any second. Minutes passed, and soon it was almost an hour. Finally, she walked in, smiling, but something was different about her smile. She kissed me on the cheek, and that's when I noticed it, her perfume. It wasn't the one she usually wore. I knew Ella's perfume as well as I knew the smell of my childhood home. This was different, stronger, muskier. It wasn't hers. I inhaled again, subtly pretending I was just moving closer to her. It wasn't just the perfume. Her hair was messy in a way that didn't match the neat, put-together woman who had left the house earlier. Her lipstick had been hastily reapplied, slightly smudged at the corner of her mouth. You okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, of course, she answered quickly, too quickly. Sorry I'm late. Got caught in a long line at the store. The way she said it made my skin crawl, but I forced myself to nod and let it go, for now. Jared shot me a look from across the room. He noticed it too. We sat down to eat, and I tried to act normal. I laughed at Dad's stories and responded to Mom's questions, but my mind was elsewhere. Ella was different. Her body language, her eyes, the way she responded to things. I had been with her long enough to notice even the smallest changes. At one point, I excused myself to step outside for some air. Jared followed a few minutes later, leaning against the porch railing beside me. You all right? He asked, taking a sip of his beer. I hesitated, running a hand through my hair. Yeah, I think so. Jared raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to say more. I let out a dry chuckle. She's acting weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Jared didn't respond right away. He just took another sip, eyes fixed on the horizon. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting it to be from Ella, or maybe Mom. Instead, it was an unknown number. Look in your wife's glove compartment. My breath caught in my throat. Jared noticed my reaction. What is it? I stared at the screen, the message burning into my mind. My heart raced, my hands suddenly clammy. Who sent this? And more importantly, why? I exhaled slowly, shoving my phone back in my pocket. Nothing, I lied. Spam. Jared eyed me but didn't press. My mind was spinning. Look in her glove compartment. Was this a joke? A mistake? My pulse thudded in my ears. I had to know. I left Jared standing on the porch and made my way to Ella's car. My heart was pounding in my chest, a dull drumbeat of suspicion that wouldn't quiet down. The text still burned in my mind. Look in your wife's glove compartment. I glanced back toward the house. The sound of laughter drifted through the open windows, life going on without me. But my world had shifted, and everything felt off balance. The car door handle felt cold as I pulled it open. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the glove compartment latch. What was I even expecting to find? Part of me hoped it was just a prank, a mistake, a wrong number. I opened it. Inside the glove compartment, among a jumble of old receipts, tissues, and loose change, was a small white envelope. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled it out. I flipped it over. No markings, just a plain envelope. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. Inside was a hotel key card and a printed receipt. The receipt was recent, today's date, with a timestamp from barely 2 hours ago. The hotel was one I recognized, a small place just outside of town. My breath hitched, and my throat felt tight. My hands were clammy. No, this couldn't be happening. I closed the glove compartment and took a step back, staring at the key card in my hand, as if it were something radioactive. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head, but one feeling overpowered them all: rage. I turned and walked back inside. My jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. Ella was standing in the kitchen, sipping a glass of wine and chatting with my mom, as if nothing was wrong. I didn't care about keeping it private anymore. "Ella," I said, my voice cutting through the conversation, "we need to talk." She turned, surprised by my tone. "What's wrong?" I pulled the receipt from my pocket and held it up. "What the hell is this?" Her eyes darted to the paper, then to me. For a brief moment, I saw a flash of something: fear, guilt, but she recovered quickly, shaking her head. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me." My voice was steady, but my hands were trembling. "A hotel, Ella. Today. Whose room was it?" Her lip parted, but no words came out at first. Then she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Are you serious? You think I know what I found in your car," I interrupted, my voice rising. "A hotel key, a receipt. Explain it." She crossed her arms, exhaling sharply. "I don't have to explain anything if you're just going to accuse me of things." Everyone was watching now. My brother, my mom, everyone. Dad stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Son," he said quietly, his voice calm but firm, "what's going on?" I turned to him, gripping the receipt so hard it crumpled in my hand. "I got a message. Someone told me to check Ella's glove compartment. I found this." I shoved the receipt into his hands. "She was at a hotel today, and she won't tell me why." Ella let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, come on. You're taking this seriously? Someone sent you a random text, and now you're accusing me of cheating? Then tell me what the hell you were doing there." I snapped. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, a silence hanging in the air. That silence was all the answer I needed. Dad exhaled, rubbing his jaw, then looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Do you want me to help you get to the bottom of this?" I hesitated, swallowing the lump in my throat. My father wasn't just any man. He had connections, people and places who could dig deeper than I ever could. If Ella was hiding something, he would find out. I nodded. "Yeah, I do." Ella's face went pale, and in that moment, I knew she was guilty. I didn't wait for more excuses. My mother called after me. My brother tried to grab my arm, and my father's voice was firm, telling me to slow down and think. But I was past thinking. I yanked open the front door and stepped into the night. My footsteps were heavy against the pavement. I wasn't sure where I was heading, but I couldn't stop now that I didn't know where I was going. But I knew I had to leave. The house felt suffocating, filled with lies and betrayal. I walked a block away before finally stopping. The street was empty, except for a few parked cars. The streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement, and my breath came in uneven bursts. My mind was racing. I had to know. Pulling my phone from my pocket, I opened the call logs. Ella and I shared a phone plan, so I had access to our records. If she was careless enough to call or text him often, his number would show up. It didn't take long before a number appeared more than the others. No name attached, but something about it felt wrong. I copied the number and pasted it into a reverse lookup site. my heart pounding as I waited for the results. Then the name appeared, Derek Atwood. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. I didn't recognize the name at first, but when I searched for him on social media, my stomach lurched. He was married. His profile picture showed him smiling next to a woman and 2 kids, their arms wrapped around each other like the perfect happy family. A few scrolls down, I found posts about their anniversary, family trips, and his kids' birthdays. My hands trembled as I read the captions, filled with love and devotion. This man wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was betraying his own family too. A wave of nausea washed over me. I clenched my jaw, breathing hard. Ella hadn't just destroyed our marriage. She had helped shatter someone else's too. For a long moment, I just stood there, my mind blank. I had no plan, no idea what to do next. But then my fingers moved on their own. I found Derek's wife's profile. Her name was Louise Atwood. Her most recent post was from earlier today, a picture of her and their kids at a park. She had tagged her husband in it. Clueless, I hovered over the message button, my thumb twitching. Should I tell her? Would she even believe me? I hesitated, closing my eyes. I had a choice to make. Did I expose him? Did I confront Ella first? Or did I wait and gather more proof before bringing everything crashing down? Either way, one thing was clear. There was no coming back from this. I stared at Louise Atwood's profile, my thumb hovering over the message button. My pulse pounded in my ears, the weight of my next move pressing down on me. If I sent her a message, everything would unravel. Her life, my life, his life. This wasn't just about me and Ella anymore. There were children involved, a family that had no idea what kind of man Derek really was. I took a shaky breath. My hands were cold, despite the anger burning inside me. She deserves to know. The thought repeated in my head. Over and over, like a mantra, the words ran through my head. I clicked on the message box and began typing. Louise, I don't know how to say this, but I think your husband is having an affair with my wife, Ella. I found proof, hotel receipts, calls, messages. I didn't want to believe it, but it's all there. I thought you should know. I stared at the words for a long moment. My thumb hovered over the send button. Then, I hesitated. What if she didn't believe me? What if this was just another disaster waiting to happen? I had no idea what kind of woman Louise was, how she would react, what she would do. Would she confront Derek immediately? Would she ignore me? Would she lash out? I clenched my jaw. I wasn't ready for more chaos, not yet. I deleted the message for now. Instead, I saved Derek's number in my phone under bastard and exhaled sharply. I needed more proof, undeniable proof. I pulled up the hotel's name from the receipt and called their front desk. The phone rang twice before a woman picked up. Good evening. Thank you for calling the Maple Inn. How can I assist you? I steadied my voice. Hi, I was wondering if you could confirm a reservation for me. Of course, sir. Can I have the name on the reservation? I hesitated. Derek Atwood. A few keystrokes, then silence. I'm sorry, sir, but I can't disclose guest information. I don't need details, I interrupted quickly. Look, my wife might have been there today. I found a receipt. I just need to know if she was checked in with him. Please. The woman hesitated. I could hear the click of keys in the background, followed by a faint sigh. Then her voice lowered slightly. I can't give you exact details, sir, she said, her tone a touch more sympathetic. But if you have a receipt, I don't think you're mistaken. My stomach twisted. I had my answer. Thank you, I said quietly before hanging up. I stood there on the dark street, my phone still clutched in my hand, my heart thumping against my ribs. I had to decide what to do next. Should I confront Ella again? Should I call Derek directly and let him know I was onto him? Or should I go straight to Louise and shatter her world the way mine had been shattered? Either way, this wasn't over. Not even close. The anger in my chest was suffocating. My hands shook as I shoved my phone back into my pocket. Every second that passed felt like another moment of humiliation. Another moment where they both got away with this. No, not tonight. I turned on my heel and walked back toward the house, my footsteps heavy on the pavement, my breath coming in short, controlled bursts. My mind raced ahead of me, imagining the confrontation that was about to take place. I wasn't going to let Ella lie to me again. By the time I reached the porch, the chatter inside had quieted. Maybe they knew I wasn't done. Maybe they felt the storm in my steps. I pushed open the door with more force than necessary. The sound of it hitting the wall made everyone inside turn toward me. Ella stood near the kitchen, still holding a glass of wine. My mother was by the sink. My father and brother were near the dining table. The tension in the room thickened the moment I stepped inside. Ella's eyes met mine. She must have seen something different in my face because she straightened. "What now?" she said, feigning annoyance. I pulled out my phone, opened the reverse lookup results, and held it up to her face. "Derek Atwood." She barely blinked. "You want to keep lying to me?" My voice was low, but the rage in it was unmistakable. "I know it's him. I know where you were today. I know you've been calling him." Ella swallowed, shifting her weight. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Wrong answer." I pulled the hotel receipt from my pocket and tossed it on the counter. "Still want to pretend this didn't happen?" Her face went pale. The room fell deathly silent. My father folded his arms, watching. My mother's eyes darted between us, wide with worry. Jared took a step forward. "You going to say something?" he asked. Ella licked her lips, shaking her head slightly. "It's not what you think." My jaw clenched. "Then tell me what it is." "Right now, it looks like you checked into a hotel with a married man while I was here with my family, wondering where the hell you were." Her mouth opened, then closed again. I had her. "You want to know what else I found out?" I continued, my voice steadier now. "He has a wife, Louise Atwood. She and their kids were at the park today, smiling, happy, clueless, just like me." Ella's face twisted into something unreadable. For the first time since this began, her eyes weren't defiant. They were filled with fear. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I asked, stepping closer. "Did you think you'd just keep sneaking around like this? Did you even stop for a second and think about what would happen when I did find out?" Her fingers clenched around the stem of her wine glass. "I don't," I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't you dare feed me another lie." She looked away. That was all the confirmation I needed. A long breath escaped me. I hadn't realized how tightly I had been gripping the edge of the counter until I let go. My knuckles were white. My father, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. "What do you want to do, son?" I looked at him. The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. What did I want to do? I could leave her. I could walk out that door and never look back. Or I could burn it all down. Tell Louise, confront Derek, make sure they lost something too. I turned back to Ella. My voice was steady. "I'm giving you one chance to tell me the truth. All of it. Right now." Her lips parted, her hands trembling slightly. She hesitated, her mouth slightly open, but no words came out. It didn't matter anymore. I had given her a chance to confess, to explain, to at least try to salvage some dignity. But she had chosen silence. Fine. I turned on my heel and walked out the door. This time, no one tried to stop me. I got in my car and drove aimlessly for a while, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My thoughts raced, my chest tightening with every passing minute. The rage, the humiliation, the need for justice, it all swirled inside me, suffocating. I didn't want just any revenge. I didn't want some petty, impulsive action that would make me feel better for a few hours. No, I wanted everyone to see. I wanted her to feel the shame I felt. I wanted Derek Atwood's perfect little world to crumble the way mine had. And for that, I needed proof, not just a hotel receipt, not just a name. I needed something undeniable, something they couldn't talk their way out of. That's when I made the call. "Detective," a gruff voice answered after the third ring. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I need your services." An hour later, I sat in a dimly lit office across from Terry Johnson, a former cop turned private investigator. His office smelled of stale coffee and old paper, cluttered with case files and photographs of people who had no idea their secrets were about to be exposed. He listened as I laid it all out, the late nights, the perfume, the texts, the hotel receipt, Derek Atwood's name. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, studying me with sharp, knowing eyes. You're not just looking to confirm what you already know, he said. You want enough proof to ruin them. I didn't even hesitate. Yes. He nodded as if he understood. Give me a few days. The truth in pictures. 3 days passed. 3 of the longest days of my life. I barely spoke to Ella. Barely ate. Barely slept. She knew something was coming. She wasn't stupid, but she still had no idea just how bad it was going to be. Then Terry called. I've got what you need, he said simply. I met him at his office that evening. He slid a thick folder across the desk. I opened it, and there it was, crystal clear photos of Ella and Derek together, kissing in a car, walking into the hotel, his hand on her lower back, her smile wide and carefree. There were timestamps, phone records, and screenshots of messages that Terry had somehow obtained through methods I didn't even want to ask about. There was no more room for doubt. Ella had betrayed me in the most obvious, undeniable way, and now I had everything I needed to make sure the world knew. The plan for exposure wasn't rushed. I didn't storm into the house and throw the evidence in her face. That would have been too easy for her. Instead, I planned. I thought about how to make sure Derek's wife, Louise, saw it all. I had a plan now. It wasn't just about exposing Ella and Derek. It was about making sure everyone knew exactly who they were and how much damage they had caused. I wasn't interested in petty revenge. This wasn't about yelling or smashing things. It was about letting the truth speak for itself, and I was going to make sure it screamed loud enough for everyone to hear. I sat in my car, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. The weight of what I was about to do settled deep in my chest, but there was no hesitation, no second thoughts. Ella had made her choice, and so had Derek. Now, it was time for everyone else to see exactly who they were. I started with Louise Atwood. I found her number through her social media page, where she had listed her business contact. She was a photographer specializing in family portraits. The irony wasn't lost on me. My fingers hovered over the dial button, my pulse steady, then I pressed it. Hello? Louise, I said, keeping my voice calm. My name is Brad Dowman. We've never met, but I need to tell you something about your husband, Derek. There was silence, then a cautious, what about him? I took a deep breath. He's been having an affair with my wife, Ella. I hired a private investigator, and I have proof. Another silence, longer this time. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky. No, that's not possible. I'm sorry, I said, my tone firm but not cruel. But it is. I have photos, receipts, call logs. I can send them to you if you need proof. Her breath hitched. I could hear her struggling to process it, just as I had when I first found out. Send them, she whispered. I did. I attached everything, every damning photo, every timestamp, every call record, and I waited. 5 minutes passed before my phone rang again. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. Her voice was pure steel. Thank you, she said, her tone dripping with quiet rage. I'll handle this. I believed her. Public exposure was next. I made sure their world burned. I uploaded everything anonymously, a private folder with all the evidence, sent to Derek's workplace and addressed to his boss. I wasn't sure how a financial consultants company felt about morality, but I was certain that an extramarital scandal wouldn't look good. I also sent copies to Ella's family, her mother, father, and even her closest friends. I didn't add a message. I let the pictures speak for themselves. Then, I made a social media post. I didn't add any names, just a simple caption. Betrayal cuts the deepest when it comes from the one who vowed to stand beside you. Beneath it, one picture, a blurred-out version of Ella and Derek kissing in the parking lot of the hotel. I knew people would put the pieces together. I knew whispers would start. I knew that Ella and Derek would feel the walls closing in, their perfect little secret crumbling under the weight of truth. And that was exactly what I wanted. The fallout didn't take long to spread. Derek's workplace put him on immediate leave while they reviewed the situation. Word got around fast in professional circles, and I knew his reputation was taking a hit. Louise wasn't just leaving him. She was making sure he paid. She filed for divorce within a week and was already fighting for full custody of their kids. Ella? She tried to call me, but I didn't answer. She texted, Brad, please, let's talk about this. You're blowing this out of proportion. Please, Just pick up the phone. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I wasn't looking for closure. I had already gotten it by making sure she could never escape the consequences of what she had done. Now, all I had to do was move forward. The days that followed were a storm of whispers, stares, and the kind of public shame that Ella and Derek had never imagined for themselves. I didn't have to do much after the truth was out. People did the rest. Ella's family called me, shocked and humiliated by what she had done. Her mother left a long voicemail, apologizing over and over as if she were the one who had betrayed me. Her father wasn't as kind. She ruined herself, he said bluntly. I raised her better than this. Derek didn't just lose his family, he lost his job. His firm had a strict policy on public scandals, and while they didn't fire him outright, they made it clear that his career was over. His clients started pulling out. His name became a joke in his industry. Louise made sure the divorce was public, brutal, and merciless. Ella, on the other hand, wasn't handling it well. At first, she tried to act like it didn't bother her. She went silent on social media, avoiding any mention of what had happened. But people knew. Friends stopped talking to her. Invitations disappeared. The life she had built, the perfect image she had maintained, crumbled piece by piece. Then, she started calling me. First, I ignored it. Then one night, after the fifth missed call in an hour, I picked up. She was crying. Brad, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. No, you're not. She sniffled. Please, can't we talk? You didn't have to do all of this. All of this? I repeated, laughing bitterly. Ella, you did this. You just never thought you'd have to pay for it. Silence. Do you love him? I asked. She let out a shuddering breath. I don't know. I nodded, as if she could see me. Then you deserve each other. I hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice. Starting over. I won't lie and say that exposing her betrayal fixed everything. The anger didn't disappear overnight. The pain didn't just stop. But there was something about knowing that justice had been served that made it easier to breathe. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I moved out of the house we shared. I packed up what little I cared to keep and left the rest behind. That house wasn't mine anymore. It was just a reminder of what I had lost. Jared helped me find a new place, a small apartment downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No ghosts, no memories, just a fresh start. One night, as I sat on my balcony overlooking the city, my phone buzzed. It was Louise. I just wanted to say thank you. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. You don't have to thank me. We both deserve to know the truth. A few seconds passed. Maybe, but you did something I couldn't. You made sure they couldn't hide from it. I smirked, shaking my head. What now? Her response came quickly. Now? Now, I rebuild. I put my phone down and exhaled. For the first time since it all started, I felt like I could finally do the same. I didn't wait any longer. The moment I hung up on Ella that night, I knew there was only one thing left to do. The next morning, I went back to the house that no longer felt like mine. Ella was there, sitting on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen, her hair a mess. For a split second, she looked like the woman I used to love, but that woman didn't exist anymore. We're done, I said, my voice steady. She looked up, blinking. Brad, no? I raised a hand, stopping her before she could start another round of excuses, another desperate plea for forgiveness she didn't deserve. You need to leave. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I shrugged. Not my problem. For a moment, she just stared at me, as if she couldn't believe this was really happening, as if she hadn't been the one to ruin everything. Then her face twisted. You don't have to do this. I laughed bitterly. Ella, I already did. The moment you decided to cheat, this marriage was over. You just thought you'd get away with it. Tears welled in her eyes. You're being cruel, she whispered. Cruel? I shook my head. You want to talk about cruelty? You lied to me. You snuck around behind my back. You let me sit at family dinners while you were sleeping with another man. That's cruel. She looked away, her hands trembling. I made a mistake. No, I said coldly. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. A mistake is missing an anniversary dinner. You made a choice. I walked over to the counter and set down an envelope. What's that? She asked hesitantly. Divorce papers, I said simply. She inhaled sharply. I already signed them, I continued, ignoring the way her voice cracked. I suggest you do the same. The sooner we make this official, the better. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at the papers. Then slowly, she looked back up at me. Do you really hate me that much? I exhaled, feeling the last bit of weight leave my chest. I don't have the energy to hate you. She swallowed hard. I pointed to the door. Pack a bag. I want you gone by the end of the day. She didn't fight. She knew she had lost. A new beginning. By nightfall, she was gone. I stood in the empty living room, listening to the silence. The house felt lighter, like it was finally mine again. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt done. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.